Rahim, dearly beloved all around the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We hope you're in the best of health and in the best of blessings, inshallah. We hope you're well. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Youth SOS. Over here, we try to tackle the various issues facing the youth in the UK and all around the world. I'm Ali Madani once again, and with me is Samahat Sayyid Fadl Baharloom. Sayyidina, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you, Sayyidina, inshallah? How's your health? How's the preparation, the continuation of your preparation for Ramadan?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, very well.
Everything's going well,
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
Yesterday we had a great show, Sayyidina, and we discussed the issue of unemployment, and we discussed how unemployment, there's about 620 million people worldwide, youth that are not in employment, are not in education, are not in training, and we discussed the various challenges that they faced. And today, to continue our discussion, we reach the next point, which is the lack of housing. Now, in terms of lack of housing, we can first of all say and discuss about the housing in the UK, of course, because we both have experience in that, and a bit perhaps on the Middle East, because we also have, well, I'm sure you have much more than me, experience in terms of what's happening in the Middle East. But I mean, when we say lack of housing, it's not necessarily meaning that there are not physical houses available to live in, but more so lack of affordable houses for these youth who come out of university, who are so much in debt and they need to start their life off. I mean, renting is one big hassle. Trying to apply for a mortgage is another one. What's your experience in this field?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, talking about housing, we can divide the talk into three main parts, or two main parts. The first one, housing here in UK, and the other one, housing abroad. Because I'm sure we have got our audience from the Middle East, do we? I assume that we do.
We hope we do.
The thing is, housing in UK, we have buying and renting.
Yes.
And each of them has got a problem. And you mentioned, and special thanks to you, about the graduate problem. But even those who are not a graduate, they have also the same problem. They need to get married, they need to be housed, they need to live somewhere. The problem of housing is complicated, and it's more and more complicated in London. Getting a proper house, affordable one in London is kind of impossible, very difficult for graduates, for young people. And let's talk first about the easy part, which is renting, but even that part is not very easy. And because for nowadays, whoever would like to rent, he needs a reference,
yes,
if not two references, and a bank guarantee or a guarantor, and he needs at least 2 months deposit.
Yes.
I had, because we deal with marriage and divorce, and I had those ladies who are divorced and they are looking for houses, and most of them, once they divorce, they will be left with no job or no house. So getting a reference is very difficult. And I know in this country, which we can talk about later, they can get the house, but this has got another problem, which I hope that we have time to talk about it or discuss it later on in another day, if not today, because we have so much to discuss today. So renting become very, very difficult situation. It's a dilemma by itself. Talking about buying, it's nearly impossible for young people, as the mortgages and the rates getting very, very high, and with the kind of present salaries, I don't think it's easy for any young graduate to buy a house unless he himself and his partner, his wife, work full time, and he probably need to be in employment for at least 2-3 years. And this is something not very easy. What we need to do, because if we don't sort out this problem Islamically, that means we can't get shabab yizawjun. We can't get them getting married. And the problem is like a vicious circle, and so on and so forth. How we sort this problem out, it's so unfortunate. Islamically, I'm talking about our centers, our scholars, including me, but I would explain later on why I'm not nowadays doing what I need to do. We need to afford help, or do qarda hasana, or do a small box, or do something for those who are looking to be housed.
So for our own community, because I was going to ask you this actually, what is the responsibility of our community, Shia Ithna Ashari community, for example, we'll do it small here in London, for our own youth, our own shabab, what's our responsibility to them? I mean, not all of them have, not all the parents can afford for their children, but there are some who can afford for their children, and they can afford a bit more. I mean, should there be some sort of a system put in place? I mean, there is now all these government schemes, but me personally, I've looked into them. In London now, if you want to get a loan from the bank and from the from the government, the maximum place you can buy is for £600,000. Now the funny thing is, London has become so expensive. When they go into these schemes to buy these kind of places, for example, I now have a child and a wife. They put the rule that you need to buy a new build, which is already inflated in market value, and in London. So I already hit my limit, say, of 600,000. Maybe the government will help me, but the bank won't give me that loan completely. And what can I afford to buy? A studio, for example, in Wembley, where I live right now. At the moment, I'm living 2-bedroom.
And you've got a child.
I have, if I want to buy, because I'm renting, if I want to buy and go to the next step, it has to be a studio or a 1-bedroom, because it has to be new build. I mean, yeah, they said it like they're trying to give us more affordable housing and it's better, but the truth is, all these new build houses, everything that they're doing, all these systems, they really actually just help the rich. So if we can't rely on anyone else but ourselves, let's say, us as a community, do we not have any role to play to help these people?
Yeah, same dilemma as, because we run a school, I talk always about school, with the free schooling. They don't allow you or give you or offer you a free school unless you have outstanding, unless you have a building with a D1, whatever, unless, and there are so many unlesses, all of them together can't happen. I think this is exactly same, and I think these things, they are putting it in order to tick the boxes. So the government, they said that we did offer, or we have offered so-and-so for so-and-so, but who are those so-and-so? It's not applicable to any so-and-so.
That's a very nice way to put it.
Because, you know, the government can say that we provided such and such scheme,
Yeah.
which is very, by the sound of it, is very nice. When you said it, I said, well, this is very nice. But when you explain it, no one can take it or can get it. This is the issue. And when we talk about housing, it's a very sensitive subject because it's directly linked and related with our shabab, our young graduate shabab to get married. Unless in this country, in this society, unless the young generation get married, I don't think they will be able to get what we call istiqrar, stability. And unless they got this kind of, stability, and that means we are encouraging them to be rebellion.
Okay, so let's step away from the community for a split second. Let's go to the parents. Let's go to these children's parents. So your son or your daughter is now 21 years old. They want to get married. No one is born with everything, of course. We should provide them a room in our house, for example. If we're a family, my son wants to get married. Is it not the responsibility of a father or a mother to provide space if they can't afford to rent out and we can't help them rent out? Let's make them a space in our own places.
This is a very good suggestion, and we highly encourage everyone to do it. But there are limitations of that. First, most parents, some parents, without saying most, they are renting, so they can't do that. Because so-and-so, if they work and if they don't work, if they are not working, if they are on housing, I mean they can't have someone who is above this age. So if they are renting, it's very difficult. If they own houses, most of them live in small houses. To live in peace, that means they need at least a separate exit.
Like an annex?
Ahsan. And to get that, it's very difficult legally because most councils made it very, very difficult.
You mean applying for extensions and
not only extension, to avoid the row between what we call الجنة and مرت العام, the mother-in-law and the in-law. You need a stair from outside, a separate exit. This is to minimize problems. If we are working long term, if we work short term for 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, 1.5, 2 years, they can live together. But when we're talking about this country where most of the children and even the elderly are spoiled, Each of us would like a separate house.
So that gives us a new dynamic to explore, because will the youth actually accept that? But we do have a caller. Let's see if they have any opinions on the matter, or if they have any questions. Caller, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Your name and where you're calling from, please.
My name is Qasim. I'm calling from London.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Qasim from London. Do you have any opinions or questions on the matter at hand today?
I'm having a bit of an issue, to be honest. So, let me try to explain it to the best of my ability. So, I've got a job. I'm not making much money. I'm living at home with my parents. And there's a sister who I've been speaking to for a few years. I really want to get married to her, but my mom tells me if I go down this path, then she doesn't want me at home anymore, and I don't know what else to do.
So your mother is against the marriage, or?
Yes.
So there's a girl you'd like to marry, your mother's against it, and you were thinking of marrying her and making her live at home.
Well, I don't have the choice because I'm not making enough money.
Well, brother, I think you're in a bit of a pickle, but we'll try to the best of our ability to advise the way we can. It's quite a difficult situation. I wish you the best, and inshallah, if it's the right girl for you, it will all work out, and if it's not, maybe you need to listen to your mother. I don't know. We'll see what Sayyid says, but thank you for your call in, brother Qasim. I mean, this is a real issue.
Yeah.
These are real issues, Sayyid.
What is exactly his query? Because to begin with, I would like to mention that let's try to get married to someone who our parents like or approve, because that will minimize the problem.
I think his problem
although
is
it's not
that
a must, but just by the buys.
I think his mother's problem is that he doesn't make enough money, and he doesn't have a place to stay, and that marrying this girl and bringing her to the house will cause problems.
Which is everyone's problem nowadays. This is everyone's problem. Every single house, they do have this problem. And what was his question? Because he talked about the problem, but what is there any question in particular, or?
I think the question is, I'm a youth in this situation, help me. I think that's what the question is. So, I mean, how could we advise this brother? He's obviously, there's a sister, he's working, as they say in Arabic, ala qad hala, yani he's making something small amount. He's living with his mother. I mean, if his mother's against the marriage because of the fact that he doesn't make enough money and the girl would have to live with them, I mean, do you think the mother has a point? Do you think that, no, the mother should be more accepting? Do you think that the brother needs to be patient? I mean,
yeah,
it's a difficult situation.
The last one is the highly recommended one. He needs to be more patient. He needs to persuade the mother if the source of disagreement about the type of marriage or the kind of wife, I don't know, but if it is as you just mentioned, that she is not willing, and this is so many times happened that this is the case, because she knows al-hal, she knows everything, and she doesn't want to have
From
extra
her own
burden.
experience,
She doesn't want to have extra burden, extra pressure. Then this is a different thing. But if because she doesn't want him to get married to that lady in particular, because she had her reasons, her father had his reasons, then he needs to persuade them, discuss it with them, talk to them, to make life easier for both and to minimize the disagreements. Because if we are trying to encourage the children, the sons and the daughters to live with their parents, that means their husbands' wives should be acceptable, or they come in terms with the in-laws. Otherwise,
it's a package, isn't
exactly,
it? You have to accept this. If I'm going to get married and live with my mum, then I have to make sure I get married to a woman that my mum wants and accepts, and
we won't say it that way, because it sounds too harsh. We won't say that the mother should choose for you or the father, but at least
you shouldn't go against the woman. The mother.
Not against, but try to minimize the differences. It's same as when you are working with someone. If you work with someone, you're employed by someone, you should please him. Whether you like him, you dislike him, he's right, he's wrong, you should work in such and such place, you should obey and follow. And this is the same. The house belongs to the mother, to your mother and your father. And I'm sure your mother has passed through hard timing and difficult experience in the old days. So she does want to get some rest nowadays at the end of her life.
Maybe that's
and usually this is the case most of the times, because mothers suffer from their in-laws and sometimes they would like to reflect on their children, on their in-laws as well. Same
But isn't
thing.
there an option that the girl will actually be very nice to her mother-in-law?
She should be, and she should accept the
But
fact.
she might be, so maybe they should take the chance.
And
I
they
don't
should
know.
try more and more because they are in need of the in-law, of the mother-in-law, and the father-in-law. So they should try to be as nice as possible. Otherwise, they can't live with them.
It's funny that we were about to discuss if the youth would accept to live with the in-laws, as in, for example, if I'm going to get married, will my wife accept to live with me and my mum? And we had this very interesting caller, and it's actually the tables have turned. I mean, it goes both ways, Sayyidina. What do you say? It's difficult.
Well, my advice to the youth, especially to the daughters-in-law, to the chanayin, yani, because most of the cases, the son live with his parent. I think they should be more humble and more content and try to minimize their options or their conditions or their orders, their demands, because they should know that.
So be simple.
Be simple.
Live a basic life.
I think sons, they need marriage and the daughters need marriage. Males and females, it's mutual. And we all need to live together in harmony and in peace. To live in peace, we need to simplify our life. We need to make everything simple and to minimize the conditions and the terms and conditions.
We need to live in harmony, basically.
Ahsantum, otherwise our life, on their life, our life, everyone's life will be in trouble. And I don't think this is advisable. And she should understand that as it's the same need her husband has, that he needs to live with his parents because he has no money. She also, in order to get some peace, she needs a husband, a good husband, and the good husband needs some peace. So she needs to provide that peace to him by providing peace to the whole family. And she needs to تتحمل يعني.
She needs to be patient.
To be patient for the first few years of her life, same as the way our moms being patient with their.
But doesn't that fall on the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, also to be patient with the new daughter-in-law?
Yeah, but I think the son and daughter, whether they are in-laws or the physical son, the second generation, they should be more patient because at the end of the day, it's not their house. It's the house belongs to the landlord, and the landlord and the landlady are the mother and the father. Yeah, this is laws of the land, يعني سيدنا. مصح, right?
I mean, yeah, I can't disagree with you on that point. We've talked about rent, we've talked about in-laws trying to live in, we've talked about what the responsibilities of the parents are, but we haven't come to a solution, and that's why we have lack of housing, and especially in our community, it's so difficult. After the break, I'd like to go on to start discussing the issue with actually coming to buy a place. But before then, we do have another caller who hopefully has a more cheery story for us. Caller, Assalamu alaikum. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. My name is Abul Qasim. I'm calling from London.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Abul Qasim. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam.
Do you have any opinions on this matter or a question?
I have a question. I was wondering if the Hawza has any part to play in providing or helping young Shia Muslims to get on the market ladder, the property ladder.
The Hawza, as in the Marja'iyya. So your question today for us is, does the Hawza and the Marja'as have any part to play in helping the Shia youth find housing?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice question, and I think it's a very fair question, Sayyidina, but it's one that you're going to need time to answer, I'm sure. So we will take a short break now, brothers and sisters. Please do join us after the break, where we'll be discussing very, very deep issues, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum once again, dear viewers. Just before the break, we had a question from a caller asking, does the Marja'iyya and the Hawza have a part to play in helping the youth, for example, here in the West, with housing?
Yeah. Well, the question I can divide into two parts. Has the Marja'iyya got such a thing? Have they been doing such a thing? And the other thing is the ideal situation, or whether we can use the Sahmain, the Khums, to house people. The first part, the Marja'iyya nowadays, has so much things to do, and they are so busy with things. And problems are much more than the things they are enjoying. Ideally, if we have money and if there are like enough funds given to our maraji', I'm sure they can and they do. Plus, when we talk about marji'iyya, the maraji' themselves, they live in the houser places. If they want to help people in getting housing and these kind of helps, I mean, their wukala should get involved. The wukala, usually when we get into the wukala, we get into problems because wakil A is not like wakil B. So that probably would need a system. Until now, such a system hasn't been placed because of the lack of funds and the lack of like the right system to be implemented.
But there are
It's not
people who
easy.
say there is no lack of funds. There is funds.
To tell you the truth, when we say there is funds, I know for sure in the last few years, the funds are less than the expenditure. You know, money in is less than money out. The Shia are having so many problems. That does mean that there might be some waste here and there, and without going into details, it's a system. Each system has got good
Pros and
and
cons.
pros and cons. But for generally and for sure, we know that, especially with the financial problem worldwide, the money in is much less than, at least it's less. I wouldn't say much less, but at least it's definitely less than the money out. And by saying that the money for housing and the money for these kind of things is not going to be huge, if we have a goodwill and if we have a good wukala who are willing to help. The maraji' themselves, they can't do that, so we can't blame them for such a thing. Maraji' usually are either in Qom or Najaf. How on earth the marji' in Najaf or the marji' in Qom can help X person who lives in London or in Washington for his deposit? He needs
Foundations, for example, you've got foundation for orphans in Iraq. You've got foundation for I don't know where and I don't know where. You've got money obviously available to do good work. The money that comes from the khumus, is it not better, the ones that are paid from the UK, to be spent here in the UK and to help the youth? They're our next generation, for example. And we talked yesterday about, for example, Maslow's hierarchy and the needs that we need. One of them is safety and security. You can't expect Shia to thrive and they got bad conditions. And we talked about the parents are maybe they're not able to help. Community is not able to help. Who do we turn to if they don't help? Is it not the marji'iyya?
mentioning the orphans. They are doing their best.
Of course, I'm
in
playing
help-
devil's advocate. I'm
in
not
helping the orphans, and there are
Exactly.
many organizations, especially in Iraq and in Afghanistan and Pakistan, to help the orphans. So they are doing that part of it, according to the abilities and the funds they have. If we talk about the second part was you mentioned that the money should be spent locally.
Yes.
I think this is a suggestion and or a question should be asked to the maraji' themselves and or to their wukala or to the foundations, because I'm not a marji' myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I suggest that someone send the question why this not been doing like this or
No,
like
that's a very fair point. I mean, this is a situation that we have, and the best way to sort out this situation or to get the answers is to go to the source itself. So, I mean, we can only advise and discuss to find a solution if we can find one. But for the dear brother who called, I do think that that's the best advice that Sayyid can give is go towards the office of your marja' and ask such a question, and we genuinely pray that you'll
And
find
I've
the
got
help.
one small comment. I mean,
Yeah,
by
please.
saying that doesn't mean the maraji' and the offices are not responsible, but it's a mutual responsibility between the maraji' and the ulama and the wukala and the offices and the rich people. The rich people, if they, like for example, if X person who's rich, if he goes and pay £10,000 to X foundation, he said, this is for the housing of shabab who are recently getting married or who are I don't think this money will be wasted, because he can ask for receipts, he can ask for
Yeah.
tables and things. So those rich people, they should take the first step and they should do it. What's happening nowadays? They say, oh, maraji' are not doing so, the wukala are not doing so, we don't pay khums. This is not the right solution.
Sayyidina, I'm sorry to cut you off. We do have another caller. Caller, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Your name and where you're calling from, please.
My name is Amin. I'm calling from Watford.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Amir. Inshallah, you're well. Do you have any suggestions, any queries or questions for us?
I have a suggestion and a probable solution. I think our problem is that we're not united in our community. if you look at other communities, they all have housing association. There's Hindu housing association, there's Jewish housing association, but I haven't as yet seen a big or a working Muslim or even a Shia housing association. If we are united and can create a housing association for our youth, then there's no reason why the government would not give us grants, would not give us land, and would not give us the facilities to project manage these housing projects and provide for our youth and for ourselves. I also agree with the alim saying I think the homes money should be used for the third world countries. I wouldn't like to see homes money be used for housing the population, the Shia population in this country. So that's basically my comment and my solution.
Well, thank you very much for that comment, dear brother, and thank you for that solution. It's a very nice theory. So the brother says that, you know, he's seen other communities who have their own housing association, and they've been getting grants as well from the government, and the brother himself hasn't found something for our people. To be honest, I don't think I've seen that either.
So, yeah.
Sayyidina, I don't think you have.
Yeah.
And he said something very interesting, very nice. He said that he wouldn't like to see the humus money being spent here when there are people in need in third world countries. We should, as a community, be able to do this without dipping our hands into akhmas. I mean, Sayyidina, I don't have a problem with a lot of what the brother said. What do you think? Is this something that can be worked on together, as you were saying just before we called, with the rich people and the ulama and everyone coming together and doing it?
I think it's a
If
very
others have done it, we should be able to.
I think it's a very good suggestion, and I think it should be implemented same as the houses the ulama are providing for the houses in Qom and Najaf and Mashhad, where they provide them with free accommodation or
Well, who
accommodation.
should start this? Who should start this?
Exactly. It's the first step is the most difficult step, and
Who should take this step?
let's not talk about that, because we took steps in doing things and then we got into trouble. To tell you the truth,
Fair
but
enough.
this is a very good project, and I highly encourage everyone to get part of it, because I think even those rich just to found it, and then later on they can ask for a small rent. So there's going to be some money generated, but with some kind of subsidy, and it's one of the best projects
What do you
I've
think
ever
if
heard
they
of.
let, for example, the youth stay there in a specific housing that's made for example, a period of 3 years where they pay minimal rent, which will help them save up
Yeah.
and then be able to move on with their lives. And every 3 years it's a new system and someone gets married and goes in. And
Yeah, I think this is a very good suggestion, but I would like to mention one thing from my experience in running schools and other charitable projects.
Yep.
When it comes to our people, I hope that, and it happened in other, because there were such a project in London 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, and some people, they
abuse the system?
exactly, they stayed there as sitting tenants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry to say that. Plus, some of them, they don't pay rent, they don't pay bills. Plus, and then when you ask them, I said, oh, Maraja and Ulama, they've got a lot of money. Why should we pay? Why should we do that? And same thing when it gets to school fees. Same thing when it gets, the problem is mutual. It's everyone's responsibility. By saying that, that doesn't mean, I highly agree. The Maraja, the Ulama should try to help, because, you know, it's our responsibility, and they are like the parents to the community. But it's everyone's responsibility. It's the rich people's responsibility.
So
and
we
I-
have to put our hands with
Together.
each other's hands and do it.
together.
We do have another caller saying
Oh, yeah.
there. Seems like it's a very hot topic today. Caller, assalamu alaikum. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Waalaikum. My name is Amir Ali, and I'm calling from
Assalamu
Bristol.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Amir Ali from Bristol. Inshallah, you're well. Do you have any questions for the Sayyid or any suggestions about this topic?
Yeah. In terms of suggestions, for example, personally, my opinion is that people need to stop complaining regarding housing and all that, because London is not the only place where they can get housing. For example, in Bristol, rent is very cheap. For a 3-bedroom house is around £600 a month. So people could actually go out of London and all that. So I really don't understand why people complain. I just wanted to say that because that's a possible solution.
Well, thank you very much, brother, for that. That was a very interesting point. But Sayyidina, I think we can go back and forth about that very nice point. So the brother Amir Ali from Bristol says, why are you staying in London? Why are you complaining about London being so expensive? Move out and go to other cities. Do you think this is viable or?
Well, I totally agree with him, and I think yesterday in our show we mentioned it when we were
Touched
talking
upon it,
yeah, about employment. And we go back to the to the show. I was listening to the program I was listening to a few days ago about the girl who the lady who left to Liverpool, and she's a teacher. So whether it's Liverpool or Bristol or anywhere else, I highly and I totally agree with him. I highly encourage the shabab, the young, especially recently married, to go outside London. London is very expensive area, and going outside is a good thing. I know they are looking for community. I know they
Well,
are
can I
looking
say something?
for
I mean,
schools.
I'm in this situation myself. I find it. I mean, yeah, it's a solution, and financially it's viable, but it feels unfair that this is how life has become. That I need to leave London, a city I was born in, raised in, lived my whole life. My friends are here, my family is here, my base is here, my Husseiniya is here, everything is here. Suddenly to pack up and move. I mean, it's not easy, Said.
It's not easy. I agree with you. It's not easy, especially for let's say religious people, because usually they look for the community, and they are trying and they prefer to be next to the community, to the Saturday schools, to this, to that. But by saying that, we should try to form many communities outside.
Okay.
Bristol may be too far from London, but I'm sure it's next to Bath, and Bath, Bristol, they can all, some group of people go there, they start their life, and I'm sure there
So
is
it's a
more.
new cycle that has to start. For example,
Yeah.
our fathers and before them, they started the community in northwest London in the late 80s, early 90s, and here we are today.
Yeah.
Northwest London has become very expensive,
Yeah.
so we have to go start that.
Well, they
So it
were
will
in the
be for our
south before.
children.
Yeah, they were
Fair
in the, we don't say Bristol, let's say Luton, Watford.
Fair enough.
These are.
We have another caller, Sayyid.
Okay.
Let's see if they can add to this, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, caller. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hussein. I'm calling from London.
Assalamu
Wa
alaikum,
alaikum
brother.
salam wa rahmatullah.
I have completely different question. Has to do with the rules and policies in a company, which are made by the management. Do I have to obey with the rules, or I can say no? I'm not going to listen to my manager. I have my own rules, and if I don't obey to the rules of the management, it will be affected the workplace and the workflow. Sayyidina, my question is that allowed from the religious perspective?
Okay, thank you, Brother Hussein. I mean, it's off topic, but we were touching upon earlier where you said that if the daughter-in-law and the son want to live in the mother's house, they must obey the rules of the land, which is the rules of the house that they're living in, which is the mother's house. And the brother's asking, okay, I'm working somewhere. Do I, Islamically, am I obliged to listen to everything that the management tells me to do? And do I get any ithim, for example, if I go against what they want, and it might cause disruption in the work environment?
Yeah, of course. Because once he gets into employment, I'm sure he's signing a contract. According to the contract, both parties are obliged to follow what they wrote in the contract, what they signed the contract for. And even by not obeying that will cause problems and things here and there. There is only one point I want. So Islamically, he is obliged to obey because contract المؤمنون عند عهودهم وأوفوا بالعقود وأوفوا بالعهود. يعني Islam encouraging us to fulfill our promises and to keep our promises. And I'm sure you all have heard what specifically Ayatollah Al-Udhma Sistani opinion about this. He said that any kind of lie or mismanagement or mistrust or miscommunication is haram. So this can be haram because once we have what we call aqd, contract between two parties, each party has to follow the rules and regulation of the عقد. يعني كلا طرفي العقد يجب أن يلتزموا بالعقد 100%. ويحرم مخالفة العقد. يعني it's haram to do anything against the contract, and if you give عهد, it's like oath, then it's haram also to do anything against that oath.
That's interesting.
But
please, sorry.
But
Yeah.
if, because someone may come and say that my manager has asked me to do haram thing. No, in that case, لا طاعة للمخلوق في معصية الخالق.
Mm.
But
Okay, there's so many.
but yeah, in قلتم قلنا, this is fiqh.
Yeah.
But before he signed the contract, he should make sure that first of all he should know where is he working. Like if he works in pub, by law he needs to carry the bottles of wine. He can't say, well, my manager asked me to carry the bottle and it's haram. I should. Oh, you signed the contract, you are employed, so don't go and work in a pub.
Yes.
He should know what kind of job he is, because once he signed the contract, he's obliged. Before signing, he should know. Otherwise, he shouldn't do haram in while he's obeying the manager. Same thing with the husband and wife. Some husbands, some wives, the husbands are forcing them to take off their hijab, and you know, طاعة الزوج واجبة.
Yes.
Obeying the husband is compulsory. And she said, no, لا طاعة للمخلوق في معصية الخالق. No, you shouldn't obey the مخلوق, the being, when you disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sorry, you were asking something. And
No,
thought
I mean,
quickly.
no. That's I enjoy always listening to the rules of fiqh and stuff like that. But it brought an interesting notion into my mind, because you know, we are talking about lack of housing, saying that there has been talks of people who play the system, for example, and some of them, because you're saying in the contract you shouldn't lie. I mean, some of them do things so that they can get affordable homes, but for example, you know, it's not all 100% kosher, if you know what
Yeah,
I'm
it's
saying.
haram.
That's haram.
It's
So
haram.
this whole mindset of I'm living in a country of, for example, kufr or something like that. I can do this. I can do that. You can't do it. This
No.
is the law of the land. You must listen to the law of the
No,
land.
No, exactly, and they need to obey the rules, and they need to respect it, and they need to be the best example. Imam Sadiq said, كونوا زينا لنا ولا تكونوا شيئا علينا. We always need to represent the madhab better than the others, and we need to accept the rules of the land, and especially when we talk about housing. The land is giving us a good rules of housing, and we should at least respect it. We shouldn't make
And there isn't this kind of benefit schemes in the Middle East. Did you see anything like it?
Unfortunately, no.
So we might have
So
it hard here,
unfortunate.
but tell me about your experiences in the Middle East. We haven't touched upon that yet.
Yeah, in the
I
middle,
mean, what about a youth trying to get married in Iraq, for example?
it's a nightmare, because I mean they have to stay in their parents' places. They have no option, and sometimes they go and stay in their in-laws. Like the husband, he needs to stay in his wife's parents, which is not the right solution. They do it usually after marriage, not immediately after marriage. Each way is not the ideal, and the limit and the choice is less. Plus, the luxury living there and the prestige is higher. As, oh, how can I live in a room? How can I live in a studio? No, it's not like, it's not nice. It's not because his father, his mother, which is absolute nonsense and wasting of time. It's so unfortunate that in Islamic countries we do not have a good system. We are not providing a proper system of housing to encourage the children, the young generation, to get married and to be independent. There was something I want to raise, and I would like to mention.
Yeah, please.
By talking about housing, mean encouraging the generation to get married. Someone may say, why do we encourage them to get married? To reduce problems, to reduce anxiety, and I hope one day we will talk about anxiety.
We have, yeah.
And to reduce rebellionism, and to reduce the anger. Once the rebellionism is high, anger is high, agitation is higher in the society. All of that should be reduced.
And the solution is marriage?
Marriage is one of the main solutions.
Marriage
Especially-
in young people.
Yeah, especially I'm talking about Muslims, as it's haram to have unlawful relation
Yes.
without marriage.
But you're encouraging marriage, and you're right to do so, I'm sure. I mean, even I got married quite young. But Sayyidina, yesterday we were talking about lack of employment. Today we're talking about lack of housing. I mean, it's not easy for them to get married. So,
Yeah,
How can you justify pushing
there is
them?
one point also I want to mention.
yeah.
The pressure here for not being married is much higher than pressure where else. Why? Because in Europe and in the West, everyone is having a partner after bulugh, after puberty, you know, after 16, 17, they have partners. So that mean-
Boyfriend, girlfriend.
Boyfriend,
Anyway, they will do
so
it.
by not allowing or not encouraging or not letting or not making life easy for our children to get married, the agitation and the pressure is getting high and more on them. They see their colleagues in uni, at work, they have partners. They don't have that kind of agitation. They go out in the park and
No,
the
it's
weather
very
is,
clear. It's
as
hormones,
warm
it's
as it is
natural.
today,
Yeah.
and then agitation getting higher, everything become worse and worse, and then it's like there is something it should be exploded, whether it's at home or outside, anger, anxiety, agitation, and then that would cause so many diseases, and whether it's in the society or in the individuals.
So you think that the best solution for the youth is marriage, but
If not the only.
if not the only, but the youth would reply to you, and I'm trying to come to you from a mind frame of me about 8 years ago, Said, I get married to this wife, where would I put her? I mean, we just discussed all these things. I mean, this brother who, I think, who called from, was it from Watford? The brother who called with the nice solution, the housing, the community.
Bristol.
Yeah.
Bristol.
So
Which is a very nice solution. No, I think Watford was, Bristol was the
yeah,
yeah, I think Watford, yeah,
the
you're
brother
right.
who called
Which is a very
and,
good
and
suggestion.
said that we need to come together
Like
and
the Jewish and the Hindu, they
the
said.
Hindus and have a housing association. I mean, until we have these things that, to be honest, our forefathers should have done
Yeah.
years ago, which we should have this. I feel like sometimes we're so behind as a community. If we don't have this, how could we push the children to get married? And even though we know marriage will sort out their problems, but they have bigger problems.
Yeah, I hope that we have time, but say there is something now for whoever, we're talking about Iraqi, Iranian, even Khoja Pakistani, if they want to get married. Nowadays, alhamdulillah, one day we need to have a show about marriage. We are doing the sufra, which came from Iranian culture, the sham'a, which come from Iraqi culture, and the cake, which come from the English culture, and the blue and the old and white and new dress, which come from the English
Something
culture,
old, something borrowed.
and the DJ, which come from the English culture, and the mullah, which come from Najaf culture, and the 7 dresses, badla, which come from the Iraqi culture, and the honeymoon, which come from the in Hawaii and Haiti and God knows, which comes from God knows where culture. All of that together, and henna and dakhla and sab'a, 3 parties, and men and women, separate and not separate. Can you imagine how much we are spending for someone to get married?
Listen, this was the worst time in my life. Don't bring it up again. It
And-
was
and
only
I
a
s-
few years ago.
and
Every
still
time I
have one
remember, I
thing.
cry.
And then please, and then the talar, the VIP, the القاعة.
Yeah, the hall.
The hall, أحسنتم.
Has to be the nicest hall.
Well, nowadays, no, it's not a hall. It has to be a hotel, 5-star. Okay, then with all of these things, no gift boxes. Okay, why don't we put all of that together, see how much it will cost, this money, and then instead of no gift boxes, please pay something, contribution for the house. Even if it's £20, even if, and let's have small party, and Husseini in the
In the
community.
Husseiniya.
Or in our houses, yani we don't have to have, yani nowadays the aras, Sayyidina, I knew some people, it cost them 24,000 pounds. And they are على قد حالهم, so much على قد حالهم, yani they have no money. They
And
have
then
no
they
proper
spend so
job.
big for.
يعني 23 pounds. يعني can't they get a deposit for something? Wouldn't it be
Probably
better?
in Bristol they could.
حتى in London, حتى in أطراف London, in outside London, they can. I'm sure. I can't get them. 23,000, they can get studio 1 bedroom. Isn't it better to house them in a housing which is themselves, it belongs to them, rather than doing this kind of? This is something which we need to get
That's
an answer.
actually that's actually a very interesting point you just brought up. Maybe the problem isn't with the government or with the community or with anything. Maybe it's with ourselves and our culture or our,
Part with the society, part with the system, part with ourselves, part with our ulama, part with the parent, part with the government. It's all shared. We are in a society, we're living together, and everyone has got his own share. I might be wrong, but this is my theory.
No, I totally respect that, and I agree with you to the maximum of extents. But if we want to now end our show soon, inshallah, to give one, final message of hope and maybe a solution, and even if we can't, hopefully from this discussion, the brothers and sisters, the dearly beloved all around the world watching, can find a solution, can perhaps be inspired by some of the callers who called in and instigate such, such a solution such as the housing association or whatever it is, what would you say is the final thing?
Simplicity. Keep
Allah.
our wedding and our marriage simple. Instead of spending that 20 or 15, let's have 10 aside. I'm sure for recently married, 10,000 pounds will be a good beginning. I've been reciting marriage nikah. For some people, they have their sufra like this size of this table, and they came from a rich family. And I always bring the example of those people, and so on and so forth. This is apart from the dhahab and the jewelries and the mahar and the dowry and the muqaddam and the muakhar and. For God's sake, let's keep our life simple, and simplicity is the key solution for our problems. I hope that we have more time to talk about, because I always encourage the young generation to have in front of themselves the best example is the marriage of Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha and Amir al-Mu'mineen. And marriage always, as some of our old ulama, they used to say that we can have it very simple, and you can make it very complicated. It's something which can be very complicated and also very simple. Nowadays I can get people married by spending 3,000 to 5,000 pounds only, and I highly challenge many couples now. They are getting married, just the qa'a or the hall or the hotel, they are spending 7,000 to 10,000 pounds in it, which is.
Well, Sayyidina, I think that's a beautiful final message. The best solution for our problems is simplicity and is being content with what we have. Always, of course, work for the best, work as hard as you can and aim for greatness, as they would say, but keep things simple. And we'll, inshallah, this discussion should carry on even behind the camera after the show is finished, in our Husayniyat, in our mosques, everywhere. We should continue finding a solution for this. We hope that you've been inspired by this show. Please continue to call us in tomorrow. You can tweet us, send in emails, however you like to get in contact with us. We are here for another, inshallah, 13 or so days with Samahat Sayyid, and we're very excited to hear what you guys have to say, and we're here for you. Inshallah, you benefit and we benefit as well from listening to people's opinions about these very important matters to do with the youth. Thank you very much for joining us once again, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6 inshallah. And if you're going to celebrate Ramadan, we wish you a very healthy fast and a happy Ramadan from us here in the studio and around the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.